Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Through Review 311. Today we're going to take a look at Morocco. This is a new game from Eagle Gryphon Games, designed by Matt Riddle and Ben Pinchback, who designed Fleet, which is one of my favorite games, and also published by Eagle Gryphon Games. This game, Morocco, is a very abstract kind of mechanics first game. So players are going to be vying for control. So it's kind of an area control type of idea where they're installing different markets in the marketplace here in Morocco, different market stalls. And they're also trying to kind of balance sort of an end game kind of area majority type of thing with the market stalls versus scoring immediately and then using some different special actions and things to kind of strike out and move around, sort of scout the different markets and so on. Let's jump in and take a look at how it works, and then I'll tell you what I think of it. Okay, here you can see the board set up for a 3-player game. It does play 2 to 5 players. And you can see players have their components in the different colors here. They've got these market stalls like so, and they have also these assistants. These are kind of like workers that they're going to be putting out. Each player also has 2 of these tourist tokens. These are like special workers. And they also have these bodyguards. The bodyguards don't start off available to the players. You've got to acquire them through scoring, and then you can use them as you get them, and then they go back here to get acquired later. And then you've also got, these are called cousin tokens, and you can spend these in the game as well. And what you're trying to do is get your stalls out here onto the board, as well as collect these juice seller tokens here. And you can see these were randomly put on the board. These are values 2 through 4, and these are going to be worth that many points at the end of the game. The other thing that has been randomly set out is one of each of the color of the different information cubes, it's called. This is information about what the stalls have and what they're selling is going to be here. So you can take one of each of the 5, put them randomly along the bottom and then along the side there, and then also in this kind of Mancala type of deal here. And then you'll put this little token here for players to manipulate during the game. And then one player will get the start player marker, and then you've got some empty basic stalls. I shouldn't call those empty, but these are sort of like neutral stalls that will go out on the board, some gold coins, and then a die. And the die is only used in the 2 and 3 player game. In the 3-player game, so in this case, the start player will roll the die, and then all the players will get 1 cube of that color from the general supply. In a 2-player game, you actually roll it twice. Each player rolls. If you roll, let's see here, this here, you can actually choose the cube of your choice if you get the little question mark. So after you do any die rolling, or in the case of a 4 or 5 player game, don't, then players will each get a chance to manipulate this little Mancala here. So what's going to happen, let's say the white player here is first, they're going to take and move this to here, let's say, and they're going to take a green cube and a purple cube. So they're going to take anything that is adjacent to where they moved it. All of the other players are going to take a cube of the spot where you moved it. So in this case, white will get a green and a purple, and then blue and yellow will each get a black cube. And then blue will move it, and they have to move it. Let's say they'll go over here. And so blue will get a brown and a black cube, and then white and yellow will each get a purple cube. And then he can move it somewhere else along here. And then everybody does that once, and then at the end of the round, this goes back here in the middle. So you have one phase of that every round, and then players will each take 2 actions. And actions are simply to just put different workers out onto the board. So actions are taken in turn order, so everybody takes one and then everybody takes another. And so in this case, white, if they wanted to just simply put out a worker, well, you can see the cost of that. Now let's just zoom in a little bit closer here and try to find a kind of a cool spot. You can see there's a lot of these 4-point tokens here. So let's say white wants to get a worker in here. And so they need a brown cube, because you can draw a line from the brown on this side. And then they also need an orange cube. So you kind of draw an intersection. So white has to discard a brown and an orange, and then they can put a worker anywhere in the stall. And typically you want to put it next to the highest value token. So if it's possible, he is not guaranteed to get that token, but it's possible now that he'd be able to grab that 4-point token. And then let's say blue comes out and they put another one here. If they wanted to put one here, they would need a purple and a green. So you put one out there. And then you just keep going along. So the cost to put any worker out is, of course, just the cubes that you need. Now, if you put a tourist token out, let's say yellow got frisky and wanted to put this out, and let's say he wanted to put it, I don't know, here. So he would have to pay a green and an orange, plus any other cube, doesn't matter what it is. So you have to discard 3 total cubes. And I'll explain what a tourist is for in a minute. He could have, instead of doing the tourist, used his cousin token. This allows you to put out 2 workers. So he could do the same idea, green and orange, and then again, an additional third of any token, and he can put a second worker out in any adjacent spot. So maybe he puts this here, and then he puts in the adjacent sort of stall area here like that. Now, once you use this, it's discarded and out of the game. So you've only got 2 of these to use throughout the entire game. So you got to use these when it's meaningful. And the same when the tourists end up doing their special activity, they're going to be removed from the game as well. Now, if you have a bodyguard, and I'll explain how you get bodyguards in a minute, but if you have one in your supply, it's just the normal cost. So in this case, a green or orange. But the thing is the bodyguards actually count as 2 workers. They still only take up one of these little squares, but it counts as having 2. Well, why does that matter? Well, as soon as one of these areas has 4 workers, let's say white jumped in here, like that. So as soon as this has 4 workers, which this does because blue and white each have 1 and yellow technically has 2, you're going to score this. You're going to count the number of workers that are in that spot, and whoever has the most is going to get 5 points and then the ability to put out their market stall. And so in this case, if yellow was the person with the most, which they are, they would get 5 points along the victory point track here and then put out their stall, and they're going to face it a certain direction. You can see the arrow like that. So let's just take this off here, and then we'll put that stall there, and this will be kind of influencing the spot next to it. Now, if you remember, these were all in these different spots adjacent to these different juice seller tokens. So wherever you were next to a token, you'll take that. So the blue player would get this 3-point token, the white player would get this 2-point token, and then the yellow player would get this 2-point token. Now, if somebody was adjacent to it on some other spot, well, now they're kind of out of luck, because if yellow snagged that, there's nothing really for blue to get there. So you've got to keep in mind as these kind of fill up, where to go grab stuff. So these will come off. The bodyguards will actually go back onto the board here, and they have to be gotten a different way. Well, now how actually do you get bodyguards? Well, second place will get 2 points, and then they'll get access to one of their bodyguards, and they also will get a gold coin. Now, what can gold coins be done? So you can have up to 3 gold coins at any time, and these are worth 1 point at the end of the game if you don't use them. But if you do use them, and you can spend as many as you want on your turn, you can swap these different cubes. So if that, and it's especially useful as the game kind of fills up with these different stalls. If I really wanted, let's say, an orange to be here instead of the brown, I can spend a gold token and swap these like this. So you can swap any on the right hand side here, or any on the bottom within that context. So you can spend as many gold tokens as you want to swap, and then as you spend and do different actions. Now, third place would get 1 victory point, and then you get a bodyguard or a gold token. And if there's ties, then you actually will place an empty stall if there's a tie for first. But the player that does that is the person whose turn it is, the person who filled it up. So they'll get to put the empty stall, and they'll get to point it to whatever direction. So let's say we scored this stall and I pointed it over here like this. So what does that mean that it's pointing there? Well, what this actually means is there's sort of like a virtual worker inside of here. So now we currently have 3 workers, 1, 2, 3, and then any stalls that are pointed this direction will add to that total worker amount, but not for considering who scores the majority. So if we did this, then now there's 4 workers, because we got 1, 2, 3 plus this overflow kind of coming from an adjacent spot. And so we'll do this. This will trigger a tie for first place, and then another generic stall will go out. So you can actually have triggers, and multiple things where this goes boom, 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 and you put a stall out and it puts another stall out, which triggers another one. So you got to watch out for that as well. The other thing, which I haven't talked about, is these tourists. So let's say the tourist was here for yellow instead of a normal worker. So after we scored this, then you can move that tourist in any adjacent spot. Let's say we want to move down here to start to seal up the majority. Once you do that, once it's moved, you actually discard it out of the game and replace it with a normal worker. So it kind of gives you a spot to score, and then hopefully help you score a little bit later as well. So you're going to keep playing until there are only 5 or fewer empty stall spaces out on the board, and then that will be the end of the game. And then you're going to take and add up all the points from all of your little juice seller tokens. You're going to get 1 point for any of the gold here, and then you're going to get 3 points for each of your stalls that's in your largest contiguous network. So if yellow had, like, let's say these 3 here, and then maybe only 2 up here, then they would just count this biggest area here and they would get 9 points. So 3 for each of those in their largest contiguous area. The only other thing to mention is you can only keep one of these tokens in your possession into the next round, so you can't really hoard them or anything. And if there's a spot that you can put the tokens out, like if you can spend a green and an orange, even if you don't necessarily want to, you have to spend something. Unless there's nowhere for you to put, then you can of course pass on your action if you can't do it. But that's pretty much the game. Okay, so that is Morocco. What do I think of it? Well, first thing I want to talk about is the player count, because it actually works very well at the different player counts. And I haven't played it with 5, but I played it with the other player counts, and it works great with 2, 3, 4. The die rolling thing, which I showed you in the walkthrough, works very well, because all it does is really kind of seed some extra cubes into the board and just kind of give folks enough cubes that they wouldn't get just from the normal use of the token here. And it kind of alleviates, I think, too much AP in the game with less players, because if you had to like use that twice or something, then it would add a lot of AP to the game with only 2 or 3 players, because there's a lot of kind of wide open spaces. When you kind of add those extra players, there's still a bit of AP to the game, or at least it's kind of prone to it. But I think after you play it a little bit, it's kind of like, okay, I can just kind of ease into it. I go to a spot, and this is going to get me what I need. I know, I'm trying to get my little network of stalls, or there's a nice juicy 4-point token there or something, or I see a spot where I can maybe trigger multiple scorings for myself if I can do it. So I know I really need a black cube. So if you kind of keep focused that way, then the AP won't creep in too much. I think the box says 45 minutes, if I remember right. Yes. I would say maybe with the 2-player game or 3-player game, after you played it a few times, you'd get it under 45 minutes, which I haven't seen. I think you're going to push about an hour. And so, like I said, I haven't played it with 5, but I would expect that to go a little bit over an hour. Stuff's going to kind of get eaten up quicker, so it's going to kind of compensate. I think 45 minutes is too short. I think it's about an hour. So, but maybe after you played it like 10 times, it would go down. And I could see that. Honestly, because once you kind of get used to when do I use my special ability stuff, and that's really kind of the kicker of the game. When do I play the cousins to splurt out 2 workers at once, or get the tourist out and get him triggered, or once I get some bodyguards, when's the right time to use that? And that's kind of cool. I like games that do that sometimes, where it's very discrete, simple structure, but you have like these couple of special things that you can do, and it's like, when do I pull the trigger on that? Because it can be pretty important, like when you spend your special different worker abilities. So that's pretty cool. I like the whole kind of balance of, okay, if I score this, I can kind of sneak in and get that bodyguard, which is going to help me later, and it kind of thwart somebody trying to score immediately. And you kind of try to like make people do work for you, because you like sneak in there and you're like, okay, cool, well, you can finish that whenever you want. You're locked in for first anyway. That's a nice kind of balance between that. And it uses this term a lot called brinkmanship, where it's kind of like, I'm going to go out here, I'm going to go out here, and then you kind of hopefully carry me home a little bit. And then the game kind of switches from, scoring those and getting those immediate sort of points with the tokens. You don't score them immediately, you just take them, put them face down. But you get those juice seller tokens, and then, you go boom, boom, I'm trying to get these 4-pointers. But then the whole stall positioning becomes very important. And then towards the end of the game, as the board fills up with more stalls, this whole kind of weird Mancala thing becomes very important, because like, if you don't have any gold tokens to be able to swap those cubes, it's like, oh, I really don't need orange, because that whole row is like filled up, so I don't want any orange to do anything to do with that. So it's a very kind of interesting arc that happens in the game as well. I think if you like these kind of abstract Euros, if you like Rudiger Dorn, I think you might like this game. It feels similar vibe to that, but it plays relatively quick for this kind of game. There's some crunchiness to it, takes just about an hour, and I think it's a gorgeous kind of production for this style of game as well. So I definitely would take a look at this one. Thanks.